Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my creepy homeowner association president put up 12 hidden cameras to spy into my windows at all times. He even looked into my bedroom. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The title story starts like this. At the time of this story, I had only recently moved into a new neighborhood, and one thing that drew me to it was that HOA was optional. Something that's not the easiest to find mixed with a new house. I met the HOA president when I moved in, when he tried to convince me to join, but seemed relatively normal when I declined. Well, that lasted about a day before I saw him again, and he was insistent again on me needing to join the HOA. That I did not want to be the odd man out by not being a member, and that there were all sorts of benefits to it. Almost the same selling points, like he didn't even talk to me the day before. After declining a second time, I soon learned that he was out to get me. So I was a carpenter by trade, and whenever I would be pulling up in my truck, he would make comments about how my truck made things look bad, and that I should just get a compact car, not understanding that I need to haul materials around, including large pieces of wood. Basically, he just wanted to complain and subtly insult me any way he could. One day I was just changing in my bedroom and decided to open the blinds after to see the moon, since it was one of those big supermoons. What I saw along with it was a very small camera in my tree pointed right at my bedroom window. I was shocked and slammed the blinds closed before spending the entire night half awake and paranoid. When the sun came out and I could see better, I went up my ladder and saw the camera up close. It had a small piece of tape with writing on it, "Property of the HOA." I was appalled and went around my entire property scouring it for more cameras. I found 12 in total, with at least 8 of them pointed right into my windows. I put them all into a garbage bag and drove right to the HOA president. I walked into his office and dumped the bag upside down to let all his cameras fall out onto the floor by his feet. "Me, you think it's okay to set up cameras and spy on me? What the hell is wrong with you?" HOA, "It's part of my job to make sure that the neighborhood is safe. Every member in contract agrees to us placing the cameras to keep an eye on the streets." Me, "The streets? Since when does the streets include my bedroom and kitchen? They were pointed right into my house. Plus, I did not sign any crap to give you consent to step foot onto my land in the first place." HOA president, "I'm the leader of this community and I have rights that allow me to do what I think is best." Me, "I want every last file, tape or anything that shows footage from these cameras." I was red in the face angry, and he just ignored my request like I was a child asking for a cookie. I could have hit him right then and there if I wouldn't end up behind bars for it. I went home instead and called a lawyer to take legal action against this man and the entire HOA. He calmed me down and told me that he was sending a formal letter requesting all the materials to be forfeited to me. He also told me if I saw him trying to come and install more cameras, to call the police on him. He refused to hand over the stuff, even with a lawyer involved though, so I was gonna need to file a full-on lawsuit against this man. And I was not gonna just stop and watch the footage back anymore. I was gonna make sure he got in serious trouble. We were going after him for invasion of privacy, stalking, trespassing, etc. I was on a warpath, and nothing, especially the president, was gonna be able to stop me. I had a strong case, and the court was not gonna take 12 illegal cameras lightly. We went to court, and as you can imagine, his entire defense was based on some minor bylaw regarding cameras being placed to monitor the streets. Quickly countered by my lawyer noting that I was not in the HOA and I did not sign anything to agree to that. Also that the cameras were excessive and pointed into my windows. Before the court was in session, the police had enough probable cause to get a warrant to search his home and office for the tapes relating to my home. They found that and a lot more that proved where the cameras were actually pointed, not just for myself either, but almost every house in the neighborhood. Police combed through the tapes and found very inappropriate and private moments, all saved and stored in the home of the HOA president himself. The judge was disgusted by what he had done, and now the HOA was trying to split the lawsuit so he would be on his own, claiming that they did not know the extent of the cameras and where they were put up. It was a good call since the HOA as a whole had to pay massive fines to not only me, but all the other homeowners that had no idea that this was going on. For the HOA president, things were about to get a lot worse. The more they looked into the tapes and his home, the more they found out and the more disturbing it got. I don't want to get into anything inappropriate, but you can use your imagination the kind of things he saw through bedroom windows. It was more than enough to get him on more charges and sent to prison as well. I will say that he seemed to have the most tapes of certain women in the neighborhood, to the point that he had schedules written down in a very weird, obsessive stalker kind of way. He never did anything aside from looking, but it scares me to think that what could have happened if he kept going. He was gonna go to jail for a long time, and everybody knew what he had done. Hell, police had to scour the entire neighborhood for the cameras to make sure they were all removed. It did not matter what the HOA said about not knowing, nobody trusted them now. It was just too big of a scandal, and the HOA was shut down because of it. It is now 5 years later, and it is still an HOA-free neighborhood. I did celebrate and give myself some nice things with the money the HOA had to pay me off with. And in fact, a lot of people did. We are happy without an HOA, and as for the streets, they are just as safe as before. Almost as if an HOA is an illusion of protection and not really needed. The community is doing fine on its own with no cameras or president needed. We even started a little community garden on our own. An HOA is not part of a community to me. I think it restricts and stops people from actually building one and being a united unit instead of a collection of isolated homes. And yeah, ripe stars, I would agree with that. If you want to have a decent neighborhood community, there is certainly no need necessarily for an HOA. I mean, I can imagine some instances where a properly managed HOA might be useful, but an illegal enterprise like the ones we usually see in these stories certainly don't add to the neighborhood in a positive way. Anyway, the next one is a Tales from Retail story, and it is absolutely insane. So it's been over a decade since I worked in retail, but reading this sub lately has brought back so many memories, and I thought I would start to share. I worked in a store selling DVDs, CDs, games, vinyl, and a bunch of other entertainment-related stuff. This story took place the day after the launch of the Nintendo Wii. And by the way, ripe stars, I'm curious, if you're also a gamer like me, what is your favorite console of all time? For me personally, it's probably the Sega Dreamcast, the PS2, and the GameCube. Although nowadays, the Switch and the PS5 are pretty fun as well. And even though I'm also a huge Sony fan, I actually never had a PS3. I'm always thinking if it might be worth it to still buy one. Then again, you can also emulate a lot of the games nowadays on PC, so maybe I will just do that instead, but not sure. Anyway, our store had guaranteed that if you had pre-ordered a Wii by a certain date, then you would get one. If you had not pre-ordered, then it was first come first serve for the remaining stock. No one was able to place an order or reserve one after the release day, as we could not guarantee when we would get stock back in. The day after the release, we had just opened and I was standing by the entrance of the door to greet customers when this big angry looking guy comes charging through the door straight up to me. Customer: "Do you have any Nintendo Wii's in stock?" Me: "Hi, I'm sorry, we sold out of the stock we had yesterday." On hearing this, the customer stamped his foot and slammed his shopping bags against his side. I knew at that point that drama was about to unfold. Customer: "Right, well, I want to pre-order one." Me: "I'm sorry, we can no longer take pre-orders as it's now after release day. And we are unable to take orders as we cannot guarantee when we will receive stock back in since the product is in really high demand." Customer: "That's a lie." Me: "What? You're lying to me. I was in here 2 weeks ago and was told if I pre-ordered I was guaranteed one on the day of release." At this point I'm thinking, maybe I've misunderstood and he has in fact pre-ordered, so I make an attempt at clarifying. "Oh, are you here to collect a pre-order? Do you have your order slip and receipt?" Customer: "No, I don't have a slip. You should have one for me because I inquired about wanting one weeks ago. Either give me one now or order one for me. My son wants one." Me: "That's not how it works, unfortunately. We only pre-order with a deposit. If you have not paid a deposit, then we don't have a pre-order for you." "I cannot order you one either, as our system will not let us." Customer: "This is ridiculous. Get me a manager right now, as you are obviously incapable of sorting this mess out. I'm not leaving here without a Wii." As angry as this guy already was, he was about to get even angrier as I now had to inform him that I was in fact the manager on duty and the only one around. I was a supervisor who did opening and closing. Supervisors were designated managers on duty when there were no real grown-ups around. The guy flipped out, pointing his finger in my face, calling me a liar and telling me that there's no way some little girl was a manager. Just as I was starting to worry that this guy was about to physically assault me, something wonderful happened. I felt something brush over the top of my shoulder from behind, and suddenly the customer's face dropped and he was being dragged towards the door. Unbeknownst to me, our security guard had just come on shift and was just entering the shop floor when he heard the customer screaming at me. He walked straight up from behind me, grabbed the guy by his neck and dragged him outside backwards, telling him, "You're done." Once outside, the guy stood between me and the security guard, almost foaming at the mouth with rage for a good minute before turning and storming out of sight. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I totally forgot to say that I also love the Super Nintendo, of course. Then again, I love almost all consoles, to be honest, so it's really hard to decide which one I like the most. Either way, let me know in the comments which one is your favorite, or maybe you even prefer PCs. Either way, the next one is a petty revenge story. I was looking for an Uber Premium to schlep 3 adults and 2 kids to the airport, along with an assortment of luggage. The driver showed up in a small vehicle and refused to admit that he cheated me by registering his stinking small vehicle as a premium. He did the bare minimum to figure out how everything will fit together, and while we were very uncomfortable, he had the audacity to stop the vehicle for gas shortly before we reached the airport. At the end of the trip, he kept inside the car and looked the other way while I got down and got all my luggage out. While leaving, I decided not to crap the boot. Walking away, I turned around to stare at him and gloat that he had to step out of his crappy vehicle to close it. Totally worth the 1 star. Edit. Shut the boot. XL was not available, one of the 5 passengers was a 10-month-old baby, and this did not happen in the US. Here in the East, we have different norms and different Uber experiences, but petty revenge brings the same kind of joy. Edit. Surprised about the amount of hate, I take comfort in the fact that my rider rating is 4.77, so maybe I'm not as much of a total piece of crap human, an entitled a-hole as this thread wants me to believe. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments whether you think OP was actually the a-hole here or not. And the next one is an Am I the a-hole story. My wife, 30 female, and I, 30 male, have 2 kids under the age of 4. We have not come to a decision on who would be the kids' guardians if something were to happen to us. There are 5 realistic parties: my sister and husband, my sister-in-law, single, my second sister, single, brother-in-law and girlfriend, long-term relationship, 5+ years, my father-in-law, and of course mother-in-law. Some are closer to our kids than others. Mother-in-law, father-in-law and sister-in-law are the closest because they live so close. So we decided to ask each of our siblings if they would want guardianship over the kids. Only my sister-in-law said no because she is younger, upper 20s, and she said she was not sure about kids yet. No hard feelings there. Sister-in-law is great with the kids in the aunt role and honestly are the kids' favorite person right now. This weekend, sister-in-law was visiting and the guardianship topic was being discussed. I was pushing for my sister and husband to be the first choice because they are just great people overall, and other reasons I won't get into. The condition for anyone we choose is that the guardian would have to move to our house or stay in town near our mother-in-law and father-in-law. My sister/husband have lived overseas for years and I did not want the kids to be uprooted. My sister-in-law pointed out they likely would not be willing to do this because they would need new jobs and the costs of moving would be too much. Side note, we live below our means and we are big on saving for an early retirement. I quickly stated the guardians would not have to worry about money and I would have them covered. Sister-in-law asked what I meant. At this point I started to discuss the financial aspect. Between our financials and life insurance policies, whoever took the kids would not have to worry about any expenses. On top of the insurance, I'm planning on setting up our will to cover all expenses for the guardians and the kids. I would leave the kids funds for college and extra for wedding/home or whatever else they choose. For the guardians, I would basically give them our retirement plan with certain conditions. In the end, hopefully anything left would be passed on to our kids. At this point, my sister-in-law said that she wanted to be considered for guardianship again. In her words, if I could be a stay-at-home mom, I would take the kids 100%. On the spot I said you already made your decision and it was no. My wife backed up sister-in-law, but I stood firm that sister-in-law already said no. To me, she clearly changed her mind because of the money. Her original decision was no, because she was not sure about kids yet. Not that she couldn't afford kids, things went back and forth and it ended a little sour. Outside of this, I've never had an issue with sister-in-law and we actually get along really well. I'm debating now if I should reconsider or stick by my gut. So am I the a-hole that I'm not reconsidering my sister-in-law to be a potential guardian for my kids? Edit, changed sister-in-law saying that she wanted to be child-free to being undecided at the time. I showed my wife the post and she is saying the sister-in-law never said she wanted to be child-free but was undecided on children because of the costs. We have talked to her about how expensive the kids have been and that's the reason we are not having any more. All siblings agreed they would move to our town when we first asked around, not sure if this matters, but if I had a choice before talking to everyone it would be sister plus husband, sister-in-law single, brother-in-law plus husband and sister single. And by the way, ripe stars, when reading this, I was kind of confused because I've never heard of such a thing before. I mean, if I remember correctly, OP and his wife are in their 30s or mid-30s or something, so the chance of them just both dying seems really low. But maybe that's like normal that you make plans like this? I guess it's better to plan ahead and be prepared rather than not be prepared, I suppose. Either way, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Comment number 1 said, ultimately, it does not matter what your will, trust, estate plan says as to who you nominate to be the guardians of your children should you pass away before the children turn 18. It will be who actually steps up to the task after you pass away. Right now, their answer could be yes, but what about in 1, 2 or 5 years? It could be wildly different. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, you don't want her to be in it for the money, but as you said, she loves the kids and is a great aunt and they love her. Also, you failed to disclose the financial aspect of taking on your children should something awful happen to you and your wife. Her answer may have been immediately different, as in, she is take them. If she understood that, she would be able to actually raise them, be home with them, take care of them, rather than work a ton, hire childcare, and never be around for them anyway because she would be constantly working, especially if she's currently single. Being undecided about kids when you are single and looking at things from a financial perspective is totally okay. It does not sound like she wants the money, it sounds like she understands that her own financial situation would not give them the life they deserve, but she can do that if the kids are taken care of. Update to the story. Thought I would give an update on the situation since there have been a few revelations. There was some fallout with my sister-in-law, which I will get to. After further discussion with my wife, we decided her parents would make the best guardians if we were to pass. For some reason, if they were unable to take the kids, my sister and husband would take over guardianship. We spoke with all of them together and everyone was on board. I explained the financial part to both mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister and husband, and there was no issues or concerns. Our family financial advisor worked with our lawyer to set up the financial side. In short, living expenses are paid for, guardians get paid nicely, and the rest gets split between the kids. We noted sister-in-law would be included for family expenses of special occasions and trips and vacations, which we thought was fair since she is a part of the kids' lives already. Now for the fallout with sister-in-law, we spoke with sister-in-law separately and explained why we chose the other family members as guardians. It was really about the two-parent household dynamic. The whole thing about her saying no before learning about the money is an afterthought. She was not happy with our choice and started explaining why her being a single parent should not be considered. I just explained with all else being equal, we would want a two-parent household over a single-parent one. I did say if she were to get into a committed long-term relationship, we would be open to reconsidering. Sister-in-law was upset, but not much else was said. Since the conversation with sister-in-law, things have been strained unfortunately. With our finances being partially revealed, the relationship with sister-in-law really changed. When she hangs out, she has talked inappropriately to our kids in my opinion. Stuff like, wouldn't it be great if she was a permanent babysitter? Or wouldn't having her around for family vacations all the time be nice? She also talks bad about my sister and husband to the kids whenever we get together with our in-laws. So sister-in-law expects us to pay for everyone's meal each time, and if we don't pay, there's always a comment from sister-in-law. Before we would switch off between father-in-law, mother-in-law and us, sister-in-law never paid for meals. The straw was sister-in-law old dog needed something like a $5,000 to $7,500 surgery. She came straight to us to pay and I said we would not pay for the surgery. She told us we were heartless to not pay for it. I explained to my wife that was a hard no and my sister-in-law guilt-tripped my wife. I still refused and overall I hate the way my sister-in-law is acting now. We won't be seeing her for a few weeks, so that is nice. Next time she does come by, I'll be speaking with her about how she treats us and the kids now. Basically, she either can stop acting this way around the kids and stop guilting my wife into paying for everything, or we start cutting her out of our family lives. So that's about where it stands now. Not great. If I had to do it over again, I would have chosen the guardians without speaking with everyone and let find out about the financial part after our deaths. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would really like to know from you if you've ever heard about such a situation before. I mean, to be honest, in my life, I know people that are way over 70/80 years old and they are not thinking about writing a will or anything related to that stuff in regards to their kids. But I suppose some people are just more careful than others. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.